The offshore helicopter industry has agreed key next steps in its efforts to achieve safety excellence in those areas with the most potential to save lives. At its 2019 conference, HeliOffshore's members agreed new plans to put the right resources in place to ensure that they can achieve lasting results in the front line. Helicopter operators and their oil company customers, along with aircraft manufacturers and leasing companies, all agree that there's a compelling value proposition for investing in safety, despite the challenging business conditions that the industry now faces.
We've done some fantastic work, and hopefully over the next 2 days you'll come to appreciate more and more how the collaboration is paying off, paying big dividends for us. And as I said before, we are saving lives. And I'll just finish by reminding us that it is a sacred responsibility. We don't do this for good business. We do it because we're human beings, and we have, we care about we care about our friends and our families and the people that we're responsible for, and we need to continue to return them safe home every day.
For this conversation we had today, I really wanted us to focus on why wouldn't we be excellent where it really matters to saving lives? Why would we want to be minimum standard in the things that really help a pilot fly a mission safely, or a maintainer deliver an aircraft that's ready for service? Those are the things that we don't want to be, rock bottom. We want to be great. We don't want a gold plate. We want to be focused, laser-like in the areas that matter. And there's a huge value in that. I wanted to set very clearly the objectives for the conference. We're here, with an outcome in mind. And so the outcome is really two things. Let's talk about the actions that we're all working on together and how we achieve excellence in the areas that matter most to saving lives. So, let's keep going on those key actions that we're doing and really make them happen. And let's ensure that we're taking the actions to have the right resources in place to deliver lasting results in the front line. And that might mean that it's conversations we have in the room, and it might mean it's conversations we take out of the room to make sure we influence and get the right things to happen next.
If you know it at the time, and you know to stay at the top, you're going to have to evolve, you're going to have to change, and you're going to have to change pretty much everything, then the next logical step is, right, how are we going to change? What are we going to change? And in what order? And how are we going to do it between ourselves? How are we going to talk about this? How are we going to start out on this journey? Because otherwise, we're going to be standing here, and 4 years from now, we know there's Olympics coming, and we know roughly what speed our coach is being very predictable about what speed we have to be on that day. How are we going to get from where we are now to where we need to be?
If we look at what we're funding, it's basically the projects that you've been seeing over the last couple of days. And it's to enable the work that you've already done, that you've funded through the membership side of being with HeliOffshore, to keep momentum going on those projects. And you can see the breakdown of what we have there. So the intent is to set this process up, and it is a process. So these are the projects we're going to be looking at initially, and getting funding for this year so they can continue and come to fruition over the next year. So, just to summarize on the JIP side, our priorities absolutely align. We've been part of HeliOffshore since its inception, any help before that. HeliOffshore are a major member of the IOGP Oil and Gas, Aviation Subcommittee. We talk a lot, we agree the priorities, and we're fully behind that. We certainly all want results, just as much as you do. And we certainly see this as a way in which we can add momentum. Some of our members, Shell certainly has, and a number of the others have got individuals that are contributing to the work group, but this is probably a way in which we as the IOCs can contribute more meaningfully to make sure we're using the expertise that exists right around this group to really give them the opportunity to do some good on all our behalf.
There were also updates from HeliOffshore's operational effectiveness and system reliability and resilience work streams.
I want to focus in my brief remarks on implementation. I think it's critically important that we get to the finish line. And as an example of that, we're not going to get the safety benefits out of an FCOM that's still a draft. HTOS is not going to produce or save an accident from occurring if it's still in the testing phase. And EBT can't really add value until it's been transformed into new training standards and programs that are approved in our industry. Also behind me on the wall is the phrase safety through collaboration. And I think collaboration is going to be absolutely required for us to get across that finish line.
So recommended practice for FCOM implementation. Where there's one published, we ask you to go back to the FCOM briefing sheet that's up on the HeliOffshore website. Go get that. It's really about automation. But take your FCOMs that you have, identify and incorporate relative sections into the operating procedures, both normal and operating procedures, and identify what can be done and what can't be done. And let's get on with it. I pledge my support within my organization to help guide the teams through that. I would ask that within each one of your organizations, you designate someone who is the champion for that and help to educate your teams on what implementation actually looks like in this iterative stage.
So why HTORs and why enhancing them? Well, we know that by improving HTORs and alerting crews sooner, we can potentially avert surface impact accidents. And remember that CFIT is a significant industry risk for us. Well, since the last AGM, there have been numerous meetings, calls and discussions around progress, very enthusiastically attended and developed. And the net outcome is that the mode 1 to 6 enhancements have been agreed by all of our OEMs. And the project's moving forward to deliver what we believe to be about 60% of the net safety benefit by delivering mode 1 to 6 enhancement on the 139 and the S92 fleets. The Mode 7 development was a little bit tougher to get our heads around, and that's been shifted into another phase 2, the Urukai Working Group activity, which started last month.
Return to base is the one that's highlighted in yellow right there. Just a short update. We all know that's the charter that we took on as an organization. What return bases are, a definition that's up there. I think an important couple of words that jump out to me are that number one, this is an interruption, is what an RTB is. It's a deviation from the flight plan. And I think we would all agree that when our pilots are flying aircraft, we want them to have as few interruptions and surprises as possible. That would be one reason that a person would suggest going after RTBs is a good thing. Number two, we heard a little bit from Tony about the fact of this perception of safety in the rotorcraft space. This is another thing, obviously, we all know sitting on an aircraft and getting turned back is not something that would be perceived as safety. So from those two, I just want to emphasize that the whole goal of this work stream is only focused on, it has nothing to do with trying to say we don't want to do RTBs. It has to do with collecting the data, doing something with that data, taking action on it, and hopefully, if we consider that an RTB is a defect, eliminating the defect.
The conclusions I've come with in my time here from this report is, yeah, sure, the return to base root causes and the priority correlate with our internal reliability data. We remain committed to enhancing reliability, but we need to do more. I think there are opportunities for improved system safety that may be present in the fault enunciation protocols. And again, I think our fixed wing friends actually have led the way on this. And really, the perception of safety, even if the actual safety, but the perception of safety, in my opinion, will not improve without industry-wide collaboration. This can't be done by one OEM, it can't be done by one operator. This is something where an organization like this, in my opinion, is perfectly suited to continue this conversation.
One example, on the 175, the main rotor head damper ball bearing plate check. What we want to avoid is the frequent removal on installation of the damper. So we have defined a new procedure for ball bearing plate check without removal of the bearing, because before it was mandatory to remove the bearing. We have developed a new tool also to perform the inspection, and we will provide the maintenance documentation mid-2019.
Data continues to be a key driver of HeliOffshore's work, both in terms of defining what its priority safety program should be, and also in terms of measuring how effective the implementation has been. conference delegates were able to get an early look at the first ever industry safety report, which is based on data gathered from the fleets of member operators through HeliOffshore's Safety Intelligence Program.
We now have the tools for operators to benchmark themselves against the industry. We now have the tool to measure that what we're doing is having a desired effect on the front line. And we never had that before, so it's been a step change for us, and I think that was evident for everybody to see.
So today, and building on what Gretchen's been saying, I want to talk to you about what we've been trying to do to achieve progress in having conversations about value that aren't just about cost. So as I said, trying to improve excellence in behaviours. We're emerging from the downturn, as we all know, stating the obvious. It's been really tough. What can we do to build on the positives that have come out of that and to kind of learn from the negatives? It's been about this industry trying to reference back to Matthew Pinsent yesterday, to shave seconds off what we're trying to achieve, and it is just as painful, I can assure you.
So two things, I think, as I wrap up for here. One for me, which is following yesterday's great session, is to make safety much more part of the business case. So boards that I talk to are aware of what's going on in this space and are making active judgments around that. And two, a challenge for the room, I think, is how do you translate this great work that you're doing in here that we're all bought into and signed up to without question, translated into a language that people who just don't get it can understand? What would happen if this industry wasn't actually not here, not able to do what it's supposed to do? Or if it were just unreliable because it was unsustainable in some way, and get the energy industry to really ask themselves, how would you do your business if it wasn't for this industry being able to do what it does sustainably?
The regulations do provide a baseline, but quite often, for all the reasons that we understand, the bar is relatively low in terms of regulatory requirements, and we need to raise that standard and raise the bar together. We also know that the regulators do differ, so EASA might have a different regulation or a different approach on something from Transport Canada, from FAA, from CASA, ANAC, etc. So there isn't commonality, global standardization when it comes to regulations, even when they start to converge as they are.
The Safety Committee collects data, operates, again, with very senior people from the oil and gas companies. And it has a key strategic project underway called Saphira. Again, I think that was referred to earlier this morning. Saphira, since it's built like HeliOffshore's work in the safety performance model on analysing data, Saphira is focused on fatality reduction, and three things stood out across all of the risk categories in the oil and gas industry: process safety events, aviation, and land transport. So there are active projects underway within each of those three thematic areas, and the JIP that Tony and Chris mentioned this morning falls within Saphira. But what I wanted to say here is, so does this standardization work that I'm about to brief you on now. And although it's more of a housekeeping activity, we already were able to prove back to the Safety Committee and the Management Committee that there's value here, and that by investing in getting common industry standards, there would be a safety and a fatality reduction benefit. So, where are we? The work group has a dedicated, funded technical writer. We have an existing work group structure, terms of reference, and a fairly aggressive pace. The 3-year window is not one that we're going to entertain here. We're going to be working this at a much faster tempo and cadence.
Having consistent and aligned standards will provide you with the basis of collecting good data. So there's your starting point there, is having those consistent and aligned standards. The mature systems will have and work with leading indicators rather than lagging indicators. I don't ignore the lagging ones, but the leading ones are the ones where you get the real gold out of it. The data must drive the standard development. As I mentioned there's a few different tools that you can use to get your standards really clean and neat and tidy there. Good quality data is absolutely critical to that. And then lastly, collective learning and collaboration is far better than doing it inside a silo. You'll improve much better and much quicker.
Over the next 12 months, we've aligned around a set of very key priorities that help us enhance safety in our industry. And in particular, we've got the data now because we've been sharing this information across all of the parties in our work to help prove where we should focus, and then when we take action, that it's actually delivered results. We recognize that it's incredibly challenging times for our industry, but despite this, there's an unwavering commitment to delivering safety benefit to the front line. And what I see is that's a long-term thing that we'll continue to focus on and continue to deliver. One of the things we need to make sure we do is be very clear about the value add of this work so that people can see it's worth investing in.